All right. Hopefully, Soninha, I know you are on YouTube. Can you hear me? Just double check the sound check. And Carol, yeah, I think it's all good. I was able to hear myself. Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday morning talk. Before we go to our initial text and start our talk of the day, I would like just to invite you, as you might have seen in our media channels, we will be having our general meeting. It's our annual general meeting on May 30th. So we'd like to invite everyone to join us and to be part of this moment where we can reflect a little bit of what happened since our last one, September, and see what are some of the things in progress and what we can expect for FSS this year. So please join us. We will be continue sending some communications. And of course, as we know, and as we are here now in this virtual environment, the General Assembly will be hosted in through Zoom, and we will we'll continue with the communications and provide you more information and links closer to the date. All right, let me share my screen. So today I am using text number 24 from The Living Springs, our series and book from Psychograph from Chico Xavier by the Spirit Emmanuel. And text number 24, and the title is By Their Works. Hold them in the highest esteem and love because of their work. This is a letter from Paul from the First Thessalonians, chapter 5, verse 13. This verse from Paul's first epistle to the Thessalonians is particularly important for our daily struggle. We all tend to devote more esteem to those who see life from our own point of view. Our love is always warmest for those who espouse our own ways of seeing things, our ingrained habits, and our social principles. Nevertheless, our interpretations are not always the best. Our habits are not always the most commendable, nor are our principles always the most praiseworthy. Thus, we must disintegrate the shell of our selfishness in order to dedicate our friendship and respect to our brothers and sisters. Not because of their emotional link to our personal itinerary, just because of their faithfulness to the common good. If we love someone solely because of his or her physical attractiveness, tomorrow we will likely find that the object of our affection is on the way to the scrap heap. If we hold someone in esteem solely for his or her brilliant oratory, it is possible that he or she may lose his or her voice sometime soon. If we are devoted to someone only because he or she blindly obeys us, we may be causing that person to make the same mistakes that we have made so many times. It is essential that we improve our perceptions and feelings so that we may progress on the road to a superior life. Above all, let us seek the company of others because of the works with which they benefit the space and time in which we live, since there will come a day when we understand that the best companion is seldom the one who agrees with us, but is always the one who agrees with the Lord and collaborates with Him to make life better inside and outside of us. All right, let's take this moment now that we have read this text and the importance of changing a little bit of this habit that we have to just be connected with the ones that are aligned with our thoughts. But the Lord has been teaching us that it's important to be aligned with everyone that is aligned to the thoughts of the Lord. So let's raise our thoughts to our Father God, to our dear Master Jesus, to our guardian angels, the spirituality and the spiritual team from FSS, and first express our gratitude for one more hour, one more time that we have to spend together to learn more about Jesus' teachings in light of this beloved and consoling doctrine that is the Spiritism. Let's be grateful not only for this time, but all the effort and the work that the superior spirits put forward to make FSS, our second lovely home, to be in existence, to be a place, not only physical place, but a mental space where we can direct our thoughts, that we can connect our thoughts to the superior spirits and learn and help us in our moral evolution. Let's ask that we may have a blessed meeting, a blessed time with serenity, with light, with patience, and be blessed by our Lord, that we can take, even if it's just a little bit of that knowledge, a little bit of those teachings, and we can start thinking, start internalizing those thoughts so we can create this path from knowledge to feelings and continue in the exercise of developing our virtues. So be it. All right. Okay. So today the topic is about habits, and we saw a little bit of the habits that from this text number 24 um, that Emmanuel mentioned, right? Some of the habits that we have, and we are invited to assess and see, are those the right ones? Are those the ones aligned with the divine laws, with the virtues and teachings from our Master Jesus? So today we will talk about habits. We'll see what it means, how important it is, what does it mean to assess and change some of the habits that are not the ones that Jesus have identified, because as we know, according to the Spiritism doctrine, Jesus is our model and guide. And if he is our model and guide, we can look towards him and see all the habits that we are invited to develop. And he was the most perfect demonstration of all those habits. And he has put all the examples. And throughout his existence here on earth, he demonstrated and he made it extremely clear, not only with voices and words, but also with all the situations and everything that involved in his existence here, all the habits that we are we are invited to look towards and develop and put some effort and work towards getting into that stage. As some reference, many of you might have seen this talk in Portuguese. Today is the English version of it. It's always interesting to identify those words and translate to Portuguese from Portuguese to English. But I'll be using some reflections by our dear Arthur Valadares, a talk that he gave about habit, Spirit's book, and some passages from 4 books. The one that I really like, which is Thought and Life. This book has a specific chapter, chapter number 20, that only talks about habit. We'll be using some key passages from that chapter, from that book. 3 more books, O Consolador, or The Consoler, from Emmanuel, all from Chico Xavier, and The Consoler is the Spirit Emmanuel. Ceifa de Luz, my own translation, Harvesting Light, I'm not sure if that's the right one, from Emmanuel, and Colheita do Bem, or Harvesting the Good, from the Spirit, Neio Lúcio. We won't go into too much depth of those texts, but they bring some interesting, or not interesting, interesting as well, but some very insightful knowledge for us to consider when to connect habit to the gospel of Jesus, and to the education and to the use of the Spiritism doctrine. And just to start with, and this is straight from this talk from Arthur called Habit, there he starts with a key correlation between habit and education. And Arthur takes this passage from a comment from Kardec, from the question 685, where Arthur provides this connection between habit and education. So I'm going to read, and then we can reflect about it. So as Kardec comments about education in that question, he says, education, not intellectual education, but moral education. And he goes a little bit further, not moral education through books, it's just reading, or if you go to school, but moral education that consists in the art of forming character. Moral education that creates habits. Look at here, the process of education that transform or form our character. And what does it mean, forming our character? Is creating habits, because education is the sum of acquired habits. Look at here, as we know from the Spiritism doctrine, education is the base, is the foundation of our Spiritism doctrine. And as we like to use the 3 points from Spiritizar, where we have our knowledge. From the knowledge, we go into feeling, whatever we knew, we acquired. And from feeling, we go to living and being that, as we are going to talk a little bit later about being that a second nature. So everything starts with that knowledge. And why everything starts with that knowledge is because if we don't know what is happening with us and what has the gospel or what has Jesus has demonstrated through the divine laws, if we don't know exactly how to compare where we are against those divine laws, how do we know what to change? And the change here is the key component, because even if we take our like the traditional education, if we go to a college, a high school, if we want to improve ourselves, the education is the foundation for the transformation. And if Spiritism's the Spiritist doctrine, one of the key aspects is our moral transformation. Without education, we will not be able to do it. And here Kardec is saying that the education is forming those characters, the moral education is creating those habits, and the education is the sum of those acquired habits. So here he points out the importance of us to take care of our habits, the importance of us to understand what habits do we have. Do we have the habits that are giving me good results, not so good results, or bad results? And even I just want to mention again, the importance of the education is, as we're seeing here on Question from the Spirit's book, but I'd like to bring another passage from the Gospel according to the Spiritism in chapter 6, where the Spirits said, Spiritists, love one another. That is the first teaching or precept. Educate yourself is the second. So here, I just want to give a little bit of even more importance to the education aspect of our life. And as I mentioned, without education of us, we'll not be able to achieve this better state, this better life, a life that is more harmonized, a life that is a little bit more balanced. And of course, as we know, the divine laws, sometimes we rebel against them, but they are there because they are the guide. They are the North Star that God has given us so we can look at those divine laws, and following them, we will be able to have a life that is more integrated with God and constantly with Jesus. And finally, a life that is a little bit happier, right? And not a little, a life that we can pursue to achieve that happiness. And as Kardec mentioned, right, this education has an art of molding, of shaping and transforming us. But is that transforming Louise as Louise or any other name there is there? It's transforming our uh, Louise, but as a whole, but transforming the immortal spirit of Louise. And that education is not a path that is just for now. Oh, it's just Louise, he does the education right now and check. No, as we know, we don't die, right? Our immortal spirit is eternal. So this education will take as long as it is required. And as I mentioned as well, the education of ourselves is that mindset, is that awareness. And as we've talked about in the past, is in our thought here about us thinking about the better habits that we would like to build. We know we have some good ones, some not so good ones, and the bad habits, right? What Kardec is focusing in this piece is that our education process is to cultivate the good habits, or the habits that are aligned with the divine laws and can benefit our life and in our immortal spirit. And as I mentioned again, it's not something that is just now. It's like going to a 4-year college degree and I got my profession or my title. No, this is a little bit longer, and thank God that's a little bit longer. Thank God to the law of justice, love, and charity, and the divine mercy, because it would be a little bit of a burden that if we had to do everything at once right now, right? And as we will see a little bit later, there are some habits that they are very strong on us, right? We have been doing kind of using the same method or the same mental paths for so long that God knows about that, and he gives us some more time, or as long as we will need to start shifting and changing as we as according to our possibilities and according to our strength to change them piece by piece until we are closer to those habits that are aligned to the divine laws. So here you see we can kind of summarize on the importance. The education process is the creation and the sum of those habits, and the education process is towards that habits that are aligned to the divine laws, that as a consequence, as a result, I can hear the law of cause and effect that goes from positive or negative. If I have good habits, the effect is I will have benefits and I'll have a better life. If I don't have so good habits, the results will be not so good. But what is habit? So Emmanuel defines habit as the accumulation of mental reflexes whose function is to induce routine. So two key aspects of this definition: accumulation of mental reflexes. So what is happening in my mind, and what is happening in my mind is will induce and will generate a result in my routine, or we can say in my actions. So one key aspect of this definition, once I was listening to Vanessa Anceloni from Kardec Radio, she's in this. She's a researcher, psychologist, and she studies. Her focus is on our minds, right? And she brings a very good reflection that Emmanuel, right, when he wrote this like 50, 60 years ago, he was already so advanced in terms of the study of the human beings, that Emmanuel here didn't say that habit is the accumulation of our behavior. And there's a lot, still, now the science is still changing, but the habit, it's not on the behavior, or if we change our behavior. The habit is here in our mind, right? So everything in the behavior is just the output of what is already in our mind. Everything exists already in our thought. And there was one time that Artur was talking about the book Thought in Life, in the first chapter, that thought is the mirror of life. And he says that even if we think about the world that we live in right now, when this world was built by God, the world already existed in God's thought. And that is the same with us. Everything that is just becomes tangible, that becomes visual to the world through my actions, to my words, or through my behaviors, already existed or existed first here in my thought. This is just to bring the importance for us to see where is the root cause, where is the beginning of the creation of our habits, so we know where we should focus our energy, where we should focus our thought, to see how can I, if I am taking a path that is, I'm not happy with this path, I can see where should I go first. So it's here in my mind. So if we take that definition, that is, habit is the accumulation of mental reflexes, is everything that I do, as I mentioned, it's I did something so many times that my mind is so conditioned that once I am subjected to some situation, my mind already searches what my mind has been doing for this existence or many other existence from centuries or from millennia, and say, oops, Luis has been facing this situation. This is the mental path that he has been using it. He is going to react that way. So my mind is so conditioned to the path that my mind had traveled already, that the mind already gives the answer. And sometimes, as we know, if we take an example, I think I used this example when I was talking Portuguese. If we are put in under pressure, or we are, as we like to see from Kardec, we are in going through some challenges or the vicissitudes of our lives. And as I see pressure or a situation that I'm afraid, I might react to that situation with fear, or I might react to that situation with some lack of confidence. But why? Because it's here in my mind, and I might have been doing the same thing over and over and over. And that has created a pattern. My mind already did that in the past, and my mind is just saying, Luis has been doing this, so this is the way, Luis, you should react. So here is that key point of awareness for us to, if we look at the divine laws and we look at the importance of have faith and confidence, here's my awareness that, oops, let me take a look at my thought process, at my mind and my emotions, and see how I can start transforming that habit from a lack of confidence into confidence of God, in confidence that God will provide everything that is required for us to be successful. So that is one key example how our minds are so sometimes ingrained in some old ways of doing things. But that doesn't mean that in some instance we will know how to react, because all the things that we have conquered, all the things that we have done, and we know, we feel it, that that's the right path. Thank God we can use those paths to continue doing it. Is the ones that we would like to change to get better results and to be aligned with the divine laws. Those are the ones that we would like to focus and train to change it a little bit. And here, as I just mentioned, Emmanuel was saying, continues with the chapter habit. We inherit thousands of years of repeated experience. Here again, those repeated experience are here in my mind, and they created all the paths. It's kind of all the doors that once I'm subjected to a situation, my mind guides me to use that. Each one similar to the other. Up to now, we have been like a boat, carried away by a river of habits to which we have offered no resistance. So here is a little bit of the challenge that we face, that we are so conditioned to some of those habits that sometimes it's kind of that, and Arthur likes to use a lot of the analogy of boats. It's that boat that is going to that crazy river, and there's no direction, right? And sometimes we don't even we're not even aware. So we ended up not adjusting those habits, not changing it, and not seeing any reflection, not putting efforts in reflecting if those habits are good or not. We are on the automatic path. Just do it, just go it. And sometimes those habits ended up reflecting some of our tendencies, and that's part of the challenge in the world that we are living in, the tendency to live in this circumstantial things, or the circumstantial matter. So we put our habits in just living the now, or living to conquer something that is that's temporary, right? That is from all the material aspects, all our accomplishments, they have a purpose, right? They have a purpose to fulfill right now. But if we're confused, or we don't prioritize, and we just look for those material external pieces, and that is where we focus our habits to put effort in just conquering that, that is not what the divine laws have been inviting us, because those pieces, they're just for now. So we are not looking into our inner self and looking how the accomplishments that we are invited to take are transforming Luis as an immortal spirits. And in some cases, those habits are so ingrained that in sometimes some of us, we kind of lose the rein, or we lose the control of our life. This boat is even more carried away by this crazy river of habits that we lost control of ourselves, and we are only driven by the temporary or the circumstantial matters of the life now on earth. So it's important for us to become aware of ourselves. It is in our hands. God has given us everything that is required. And if we take a look at Lazarus' message and the gospel according to Spiritism about our duty, it's our duty and it's our right as well to develop those healthy habits that will generate the beneficial results, not only for Louise in this incarnation, but to my spiritual evolution. And another invitation, as I mentioned, we have challenges on this earth, right? Is to resignify or changing our lenses towards those circumstances that are challenges or that can cause a little bit of pain or a little bit of trouble, right? A lot of times those circumstances, as we face those circumstances, they're challenging, we tend to go towards some habits of discouragement, right? Or despair or withdrawal or giving up. So here, a great invitation for us to, as soon as we look at those or we are subjective to those situations, we try to change it and see as an opportunity to work in improving ourselves and changing that habit of going from despair, of discouragement, and change it to confidence and to the apprentice feeling, and how I can use that situation and see if the way that I'm reacting to that situation is a pattern that or a crystallized habit that I have been doing in the past. How can I change it? How can I take that opportunity as how can I take that situation as an opportunity for me to change something? And this is a fundamental step, especially in the world that we're living in, right? We are in the world of trial and expiations. There will be, it's not a if it will happen, but it's when it will happen, the situations that will cause us a little bit of discomfort, because that discomfort is the lesson. That discomfort is the mechanism that, according through the divine laws, it's there for us to change something that was not providing the best results. Maybe we don't know yet, but if we believe that God is perfect and the situation is not by chance, it's for us to try sometimes, and I really like to talk about fear, and sometimes we just don't do something because we don't want to be frustrated, but that frustration is that mechanism, is that key piece that lead us to change some of old habits. Those habits, as I mentioned, maybe of despair, discouragement, to change that to confidence and faith and empowerment, that we are able to change that to a better place. And here's some reflections, right? As we know about those ingrained habits, what habit is, the process of education and habits. So which habits are we cultivating that assist us in fulfilling the divine laws and in the pursuit of happiness? Which ones that are like, cool, I just need to be doing more and more of this, because this is aligned with the divine laws. This is the ones that are driving me to the happiness place. On the other side, what habits need to be revised so that we can fulfill the divine laws and continue in the pursuit of happiness? Which ones that we're seeing, as I mentioned, sometimes am I going into the habit of discouragement, to the habit of despair, to the habit of fear. So, do I go there? In what situations do I go there? How can I change? Or what are the efforts or what are the knowledge that I need to search for so I can start transforming and transmuting those into a better habit? So this is for each one of us to reflect in our own lives. Here it's another brilliant or interesting piece from Arthur when he compares or he describes 4 archetypes or 4 characteristics from towards the gospel of Jesus. So how people behave, how all of us behaved even when Christ was incarnated on earth, and sometimes even now. So he created 4 archetypes. So he started with the first archetype on your left, which is the adversary. Is the behavior or is the way that sometimes some of us, we fight and resist Jesus' transformative proposal. We just reluct and we don't want to go there, right? So that's the adversary archetype. What is most common nowadays can be one of the multitude or the crowd. The crowd is that archetype where we seek the teachings of Christ, not to learn from him, but so that Jesus meet our own whims, caprichos. It's our own needs and our own interests. Sometimes with the crowd archetype, it's, oh, I'm going to do that because the world is doing that. Everybody is doing that. I'm following those standards, but I really don't find the true inner peace or the happiness. I sometimes, even in the Spiritism doctrine, I just search for the doctrine because I want to see the phenomena. I want to see just the mediumship or transforming or talking, but I'm not interested in the inner transformation. Then he brings into the right side 2 of those more the archetypes that we should be aiming for. The disciple. So the disciples seek Jesus not so that he will serve us, but rather we learn to work with Jesus. And the apostle is kind of the one where Jesus is already present, is the example, right? Is the emissary or the ambassador of Jesus, whatever he is. So the invitation, what's the relation of this with habit? So the invitation that Arthur invites us to do is on the transform our habits to go from crowd to the disciple, is to go to change, to take that fundamental step to get out of the crowd where we really understand the place and the importance of the circumstances or the things that are required for now in our existence, but we take that step further. We take that, how can I seek Jesus and how can I work with Jesus and the God teachings so I can transform, so I can learn, so I can change, so I can put all the work required for me to achieve that better state, so I can have a truly meaningful existence, a truly meaningful, transformative incarnation and transformative in me as an immortal spirit. So that's a key step, a key habit where we don't look for Jesus just when I just want to take care of my whims or my needs, but it's that sustainable inner transformation. And I take the reins. I take control of my challenges or all the good things that I have acquired, and I don't let the external world guide me. Because I think we're going to see a little bit later, sometimes we are just so conditioned to just to do whatever the world is doing without reflecting, without thinking about, is that the right thing to do? Is that aligned with what has Jesus taught us? is that aligned with the divine laws? Am I developing a virtue that will give me good results or will put me closer to God and to my evolution? Sometimes we are so automatically that we forget. And one way for us to open, if we remember those mental reflexes, those paths that are kind of ingrained, they are sometimes a little bit narrow. We can just look at with inside of a box, but how does the gospel of Jesus and the Spiritism doctrine can open for us to find new mental paths that will direct us to this communion with our Father. So the knowledge and education process to know what is out there, what has Jesus done that can open my mental paths options, so I can change whatever is not doing me good. So this is our self-education process. Whatever path I'm not happy with, and I can take a look at all the gospel and the Spiritism and say, I haven't even know about that path. Let me start the work in creating and building up and developing that new mental path. And how do we build our new habit? So Emmanuel, in the Harvesting Light, Emmanuel he's so good in the teaching and the education process that most of the time he gives us a goal and he gives us a little bit of the way how to achieve that. And Arthur uses this passage from chapter 55 from the Harvesting Life, where Emmanuel says, we sigh, it's like nós suspiramos, we sigh for personal improvement. However, in order to achieve it, it is urgent not to forget the discipline that precedes that formation or transformation or that future state of personal development. So here, Emmanuel gives us a goal. I think it's fair to say that most of us, we strive for that improvement. No one would like to just stay here and don't do anything, right? So most of us, we strive for that improvement. However, in order to do that, it's so important that we take into the discipline, right? Is to condition ourselves into practice, into do and identify everything that is required to achieve that goal, because that goal will not just land on our lap, land on our table, and that's good. If we take the law of merit, the law of progress, and the law of work, it is imperative that we understand and we know exactly what is required to do, and we do the work. We do the work that is required for me to achieve that North Star. So Emmanuel gave us whatever that potential goal looks like for each one of us, and what is required, what is the way to be doing it. And in another book, The Consoler, Emmanuel also says that there is this popular saying, the popular saying considers that habits make second nature. It's like, oh, I'm just doing it because that's the only way I do it. And we must learn that discipline precedes spontaneity, within which the soul can more easily achieve the goal of its redemption. So a new habit will only become something that is second nature if we take the effort and the discipline and the work to improve in ourselves. And that will take and will look like different for every single human being on this earth. But it's important that the spontaneity, when I do things because, and I do the good thing as nature, as natural, that doesn't happen overnight. That takes effort, that takes us to reflect, to identify what is required to be done. Then it will be a second nature. Then I will do that as as spontaneous as we could. And that we don't even need to go in that far about more of the spiritual habits. We can put even closer to us. It's in terms of the habits of our body, how we feed ourselves, our sleep, our study, meditation, praying. So every piece of that requires that discipline. If I want to maybe sleep better, or I want to have maybe better thoughts or better control of my thoughts, it's maybe I need to change my prayer habits. Maybe I need to change my meditation habits. So all of that. And if we put that and we combine that with the gospel of Jesus and the Spirit doctrine, we will see all the divine potentials, or those divine, and I think Sonia mentioned when I did this in Portuguese, those immortal habits that we are invited to strive for, or to put our work towards it, so we can be a better immortal spirit. So importance here, and Emmanuel is very key in the aspect of discipline, the discipline of doing the work, of doing what is required to do to achieve that goal. And here I bring another question, because people say this is a question 894 from the Spirit's book, and Kardec answered that question. There are persons who do good through a spontaneous impulse without having to struggle with any contrary sentiment. So those superior spirits, they just do good as a second nature. How does that work? Do they deserve the same merit as those who have to struggle against their own nature, their old habits, and who manage to overcome it? And the Spirit said, those who do not have to struggle have already made progress, have done their discipline. They struggle and triumphed in the past. That is why good sentiments cost them no effort, and their actions seem so easy. So doing good has become a habit for them. Look at here the beautiful combination and the process leading up to that good habit. And continue with chapter Thought in Life, chapter 20. Emmanuel says, in general, the human race lives this vicious and recurring cycle of ignorance and does not want to counteract it. We seek to deceive ourselves after birth only to become completely disillusioned after death. Thus, we are imprisoned in the confines of an illusion-disillusion syndrome. Century after century, we return to tread the same road from where we were expected to go forward. So here, Emmanuel brings our attention to that vicious cycle, right? And here, I intentionally, in some of the translation of this the passage, they just say cycle of ignorance. But I wanted to put the cherish ignorance, because Emmanuel uses in Portuguese ignorância acalentada, because it's that ignorance that I chose to do. It's the law of free will. I can choose to do A or do B, and sometimes that ignorance that I like to be there. We might like to be there, and I strive to be there. So it's important to be aware when we are choosing to be to cherish that ignorance, and when we choose not to. So we can break this vicious cycle. And it's interesting, he says here, before ourselves after birth, right? We deceive ourselves after birth. So we choose that ignorance when we incarnated, thinking, oh, it's all good. And then we are delusioned after when we are dead, because we know that it's just a death of the body. The spirit, the immortal spirit, will be still there. So the importance to us to awaken our conscious, so we can break this cycle, and we can see what pieces of the cycle I need to course correct, so we can have more virtuous cycle, a cycle where I can make more progress. And Emmanuel mentions as a higher cycles of existence, a cycle where I take maybe more steps forward and I didn't stay in the same place that I was before. And he continues, however, we should not by any means disregard a constructive routine. Through it, people evolve, I'm not sure if that's the way you write it, in space and time to attain the resources that dignify their lives. Here, it's so important. It's the little things. It's that daily, small discipline that we strive for and we continue, we persevere, because it's the accumulation of those small things that we will get to a bigger or a better state. So we should not disregard, we should not take for granted all the efforts that we do, as small as they are. And as Jesus mentioned, be faithful in the little things and we will be faithful on the bigger ones. So it's us being conscious that we can do little by little, pieces by pieces, and we will get there. So importance for us to not disconsider and not disregard the smallest actions, because when we put them together, we will be able to achieve even bigger things. And again, those disciplines or those small things, maybe it's more time in prayer. Maybe I was praying just in the night. And as the Gospel according to Spirits mentioned, it's so important as soon as we come back to reality, when we wake up, maybe I need to pray in the morning or during lunch. I don't know. Everyone needs to find their own, their better place. Or it's, I would like to get more information in subject A or subject B. So even though it's just a little piece, but we should strive and we should not take for granted the small disciplines in our routine. Any small gesture will count. And here is a great analogy about habit in our mental house. So this is from the book Bigger Word, or Mundo Maior. So that was an explanation brought by Arthur, where he compares our mental house to habits, to a house, our mental into a house. So he says that our mental house is like we had a basement. And the basement of our mental house is a kind of our subconscious brain. It's all the things that we have already achieved in our evolutionary path. It's kind of our archive. It's where our automatic impulses and habits are stored. Then if we go a little bit above, we have the ground floor. The ground floor is where we are conscious and where the effort and our will live. It's where we are working right now. We're working and to achieve new things. It's our current environment. It's our current achievements. And then if we go one level up, is our roof. And the roof of our mental house, it's our super conscious. It's where all the divine ideals and the superior goals are to be reached. It's all the goals they leave on that roof. We can compare that the basement could be our past, the ground floor is our present, and the roof is our future. But what is the exercise? What does that have to do with habit? So the habit here that we are invited is to take a look at the roof and see, oh, what are the ideals? What are the things that I would like to bring down to my ground floor so I can use my effort, my will, and my work so I can achieve that new goal, so I can construct new habits that will fulfill those goals. And as soon as I complete there, I can ship that to my basement. I can ship that to my habits. And with discipline, patience, and constant, we can make that as a second nature. And as we know, the divine laws and our Father gives us everything that is required so we can take whatever is in the roof, and we know in the roof there's thousands of stuff, but we are invited to pick the ones that we think we can and we have the resources and the ability to do now, and do the work. So this is the habit that we're invited. Look at the roof, do the work, and then we can ship that to our basement as our archive and our achievements already. So we can continue doing that. And a reflection is, what ideals or goals am I invited to pursue so that I can work on developing them with effort and willingness to make them as a habit? And I would like to bring, and towards the end here, this passage, which is beautiful. The habit of studying the gospel by meditating on its lesson is a process of magnetizing our spirit to the higher spheres. Look at here now, Leo Lucio, driving us and bring us the importance for us to cultivate and to drive our minds to be in contact with the gospel, so we can place ourselves closer to upper places, so we can open our channels of inspiration and intuition. We can open our channels and our soil to the fertilization from the top, from the upper spheres. So it's important for us to consider that, so we can go beyond to solve some of our challenges. And God, with its mercy, has given us this doctrine and its gospel to help us to achieve that destination. And towards the end here, habit and Jesus' apostleship becomes a resplendent set of reflections aimed at the redemption of the human way. He taught the virtue of simplicity when he began his pilgrimage amongst humanity that originated in the manger. And his death on the cross taught us serenity, patience, and belief in the resurrection in the eternal life. So here, Jesus is our model and our guide, as I mentioned in the beginning, and he gives us all the habits so we can model towards him. He enriched our souls, and with all the seeds, they're all here in potential within us, waiting for us to direct our effort to harvest within us those changes. If we compare Jesus' mental house and our mental house, can you imagine that Jesus' mental house, everything, like there's almost nothing on the roof, everything is in the basement already, because he had transformed and he had created all the right habits. And for us, we just need a little bit of more time, but as we know, we will get there. And I'd like to leave with the 3 reflections. Which habits are we cultivating that assist us in fulfilling the divine laws and in the pursuit of happiness? Which ones need to be revised so that we can fulfill the divine laws and continue the pursuit of happiness? And what ideals and goals am I invited to pursue so I can work on developing them with effort and willingness to make them as a habit? And that's it. 11:58. No questions? No? Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll do our final prayer. So let's stay connected to our Father, stay connected to our Master Jesus, and stay connected to our guardian angels, and be grateful again for this opportunity that we were able to learn a little bit more of habit, that we were able to see the habits that Jesus has communicated to us, so we can strive, so we can look for those habits and start making all the effort and the work that is required to achieve that state, to achieve and pursue that desired happiness. Let's be thankful for the divine mercy that gives us all the opportunities and all the chances that are required for us to achieve and to get into that happiness and to get closer to our Father and to our Master. Let's ask for the spiritual team from FSS and our guardian angels that we continue to have a blessed Sunday, that we have a week of patience, a week of serenity, a week where every human being, even though we are in this situation in the world that is challenge, but we can have a little bit of light and a little bit of the confidence that we're invited to develop so we can go through this challenging moment and we become closer to a better world and a better earth. So be it.